All right. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. And thank you for your words. To begin with, I'd like to express some gratitude. First of all, for all of you for coming today. It's great to be in the presence of people who have an interest in preparedness. Okay, whether that's temporal, spiritual preparedness. I'm grateful for you because one thing that I have come to value more than almost anything in my life is the time and attention of people. That's something that I don't know how to adequately value that, except to say that it's one of the most valuable things that I believe that exists. So thank you. Also, I'd like to say thanks to my mom for putting this together. She's done so much work. Thank you. Thanks, Mom. And my dad, who's such a he's got such a good heart. My youngest just walked up to me about 2 minutes ago and told me he had to go to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, okay. This is not the time. Can you hold it for the next 30 minutes? No, my dad. Thank you, Dad, if you can hear me. He's with Seth in the restroom somewhere. So I really appreciate that. Now, there's a little bit of irony in this that, if you're prepared, you shall not fear. And this conference is about being prepared, and I'll be honest with you, my mom asked me to speak months ago, and I felt good about it. Yes, I'll speak, and this has been on my mind for a long time. But I'm not sure what's going to come out. I'm not sure exactly what's going to come out of my mouth. I have the opportunity pretty regularly to stand in front of people and to speak and to teach. But it's rarely something as important as what we're talking about here. And so this does make me a little bit nervous. Okay, being in front of you because of the importance of it, it does make me nervous. But I'll get over it. I'll get over it maybe in 45 minutes or so. So about 15 minutes after I'm done, I'll be fine. Now, when I sat and pondered and prayed about what I could share, what I could speak about, because I don't consider myself anything special that I would have some great words of wisdom to share for anybody. We think when we're asked to speak, I'd love to get up and just share some wonderful nuggets of wisdom that people can walk away with, just blown away by that. And that's not what I got when I prayed. When I went into my closet and spent a lot of time asking the Lord and saying, what am I supposed to talk about? What would you like for me to say? And it was kind of funny, and it did help me relax a little bit because the Lord does have a sense of humor. And in this case, Mom, this is going to involve you. Dustin, don't cut my mic. I'm going to tell a story. So this was, in all honesty, this is the story that came to my mind when I prayed about the topic. And it was about my mom. Several years ago, well, if you guys know my family, I have 8 siblings, okay, 3 brothers, and each of us served missions. My oldest brother served in Kenya, in Africa. I served in Germany. And then my younger brothers, one served in Taiwan and the other in Jamaica, all over the place. And if you know my mom, she loves to travel. And she wanted to be able to go and pick up her children, who served missions in the country that they served their missions. And she was able to do that with Derek in Taiwan. She wasn't able to do that with the rest of us. She did go with Dustin to Jamaica afterward, and she did go with me to Germany. And this story is about that trip. If you know my mom, she's all about preparedness and planning, and she's very good at that. Well, she mentioned to me one day, and this is shortly after my mission, she mentioned to me that she would like to do something spontaneous. And I said, okay, are you sure? Yeah, she wanted to do something spontaneous, so I said, all right, let's do it. Let's go to Germany. And I actually got my mom to go with me to Germany without reservations. We took off and had no reservations or anything, and we went to Germany, and you should have seen how nervous she was. We got to Munich, and I was just enjoying my time, just wanted to see all kinds of things going around the city, and she asked me probably every 5 or 10 minutes, can we call someone? Can we? And I bring this up because I had to sit and ponder and wonder why would you bring this, that story to my memory, Lord? Why would you give me that? And as I thought about it, we left without reservations. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have a plan in place. It turned out to be a great trip, and we stayed in some neat places. But I was still prepared. Even though I didn't have a plan laid out, I was prepared in that I did have what I needed to call the right people and to get things in place. And from that, after praying and getting that story and realizing, okay, I think what I'm going to be sharing, I have several scriptures that have been swimming around in my mind over the last couple days that I'll be sharing, as well as weaving some of my own story into this, in the hopes that maybe it might connect with one of you or with some of you out there that may have experienced the same things. If I were to go back over 10 years ago, a little while after I was married, my in-laws had gathered the family together, and it was all immediate family except for me. I was the only one that wasn't immediate family present when they shared with everybody that they no longer believed. And you can imagine, coming from a background of my family growing up, we owned the second row in the ward. That was our row. And coming from that background of what I'm sure many of you are familiar with, to suddenly having somebody there telling us we don't believe, and the shock of that, and what that does to those whose faith or whose belief may have been rooted in, or at least started out in the faith of their parents. And so what that did is that shook some foundations, okay? Not that was a bad thing, but it shook foundations and caused us both, to start searching diligently. And I stumbled upon a book. I don't know if many of you maybe some of you are familiar with it, Experiencing the Mighty Change, written by Hal Wilcox, and he has since passed. Several years ago he passed away, but I stumbled upon that book, and it was a gift to me to stumble upon that and read that, because when I did, it served to help open my eyes. My eyes began to be opened, and a path was forming in front of me, one that involved going back and reading the words of the Lord in a way that I had never seen them before. And I'm positive that many of you, if not all of you, have experienced something similar. Something similar in the way that you have been shaken, or you've heard something and the Spirit touched you in a way to teach you the words that you were reading or that you were hearing in a different light. And that's what happened to me. Now, from that time, maybe the greatest realization was realizing my awful state. I had assumed that, growing up in the church and doing all the things that I was supposed to do, and by nature, I was not one to push the boundaries of the limits. I did not like to be in trouble. That was not my nature. My other siblings right around me had pretty strict curfews, but my parents kind of trusted me more. But that was not my nature. And yet still, when that happened, when that occurred, I realized in that moment that I had to start asking myself some tough questions. Like I'm reading now in the scriptures about this mighty change of heart. Have I experienced that? And as I pray about that and ponder, I think if I'm asking the question, I probably have not, because that is something that I should be aware of, that I should know. And so I just became a student of the scriptures of the Lord in my closet. Just I don't know how many hours I've spent in my closet, but it's my own temple within my home. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward a little bit because years have gone by, and I've learned quite a bit. I've experienced some things, but yet still wondered to myself, have I experienced these things? And beyond that, I've learned about other things, other blessings that are available. Things such as a second comforter, having your calling and election made sure, things like that. Like, I want those things. And so I would kind of focus on that and desire those things and pray, and yet it didn't seem to happen. And I wonder if some of you experience the same thing. If you pray for a mighty change of heart because you're not sure if you've ever experienced one. If you pray for the Lord, if you want to meet him, if you want to be in his presence, and it wasn't happening for me. It wasn't happening for me for quite a while. And so I'm going to fast forward a little bit more. Just a couple years ago, some experiences in my life were really difficult. As I was going through them, they were of the nature that when it occurred, when this trauma occurred to me, I couldn't eat. I dropped 25 pounds in about 40 days. Just had such a hard time eating. Well, I've put most of it back on. I'm doing fine, but I dropped a lot of weight pretty rapidly, and I turned to my closet and I turned to the Lord, asking, what can I do? What can I do? And I was getting direction. What was interesting in this experience that I'll tell you, because as Joseph Smith spoke about in Lectures on Faith, pure testimony is what really ignites the faith in others to go and do things, to go and do what needs to be done to develop the faith necessary to bring you back into the presence of the Lord. And in this moment, in my closet, I was deep in prayer, just crying out to the Lord, laying it all out, and just not feeling good at all when he spoke the words to me very clearly, and he said to me, "He who seeks his life shall lose it, but he who will lose his life for my sake shall find it." And it made me sit up straight and think, well, that was, okay, what am I missing? And immediately immediately to me was shown, sorry, this may be kind of difficult for me to get through, but immediately what I saw my heart, and I saw my focus had been on my own heart and the pain that I had been going through. And in a moment, he changed the vision. He changed the vision and showed me someone else's heart. And then he showed me, or rather, he let me experience. He let me experience the pain that they were going through. And he let me experience the pain and suffering of any and all actions that I had done or said that had affected, whether intentionally or unintentionally, anyone else. And I got to experience that. And that was not pleasant. That is what I would call fire. In the scriptures, when fire is referenced, it's often purifying. Or this lake of fire is spoken of in the book of Revelation. That some will be thrown into this lake of fire. And that's how I would describe what I was going through. Suddenly my thoughts in an instant changed, and I thought no more about myself at all. Like I didn't care what happened to me. There was no concern over my own heart. I just wanted anything of anybody else's heart that I had anything to do with to be fixed. And I knew that it wasn't me that could do that. That was the hard thing. I couldn't fix what I had done, but he could. He can do that. It's a terrible thing to fall into the hands of the Lord. Terrible when you have to face the fire. But there are no better hands to fall into, because he can take you through that. And after that, as I left my closet, I was completely different. The change that had occurred, I knew was real. I could actually eat solid foods again immediately. And that was the least of the things that God had done for me. Since that time, and I know what I've experienced, since that time, he's shown me many things. In dreams and visions, I hear his voice, and I know that every one of you can do the same thing. We are all invited to do the same thing. I have a few scriptures written down that I need to share. One of those, when the Lord was asked, and I'm going back to my trusty, I know we've got several, we may have different versions. What I brought with me, I brought my old trusty, okay, my quad. I also brought this. I don't know if I'll use it, but I do like to read in different versions of the scriptures just to see different perspectives. And this one doesn't find its way out of my house very often. I don't bring this very often, but it's one of my favorites, Rotherham's Emphasized Bible. And it's a joy to me to read this one. When the Lord was asked he was asked about, what's the most important commandment in the law? And he refers back to the law. And I really appreciate, Suzanne, I appreciate you saying, or mentioning the Shema. Because when the Lord started talking, he told them to love God and to love their fellow man. And referring back to the law, the Shema, Deuteronomy 6, reads, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. And he's referring back to that. Not only there, but back in Leviticus, we're told to love our neighbor. And Christ did a masterful job of summing it all up in those two statements. Now, how, and this is something, how do I love God? And we're familiar with the scriptures that read, if you love me, keep my commandments. And I'm the type of person that likes to ask why. As a child, I feel like I'm a child right now, spiritually a child. And I ask why a lot. I go into my closet and I just pester the Lord with questions of why. It reminds me of a neighbor that we had growing up on the other side of the fence when my mom had the idea she wanted a water slide and thought Dad can do that. So my dad designed and we built a water slide in our backyard. And then the neighbor boy, little child, would come over to the fence, and I watched him do this several times, would come over to the fence and just start asking my dad questions. Why? And my dad would answer, why? And my dad would answer again. And it was amazing to see how many times my dad could answer that question. But that image came to my own mind as I realized I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing to the Lord, just asking him why and pestering him. And I would encourage you to do the same. If a question, this just comes to mind, a question that comes to me is, do I hear his voice, or am I hearing my own voice in my head? How do we know when it's his voice that we're hearing? How do we distinguish that? We have to be able to recognize his voice if we're going to be his people. You can practice. You can practice that. You can practice hearing the Lord's voice. In fact, take it to him. He's very friendly. Take it to him, just this idea that you want to get to know his voice better. And ask him. Start asking him questions. Say, Lord, will you teach me something that I don't know? And start to listen. You might learn some really interesting things. And when you have the thought come to your mind, you say, where did that come from? Don't immediately dismiss it. Okay, think about it. Ponder it. He can tell you something like, an acquaintance of mine did exactly that and asked, and the Lord told him, bears eat snakes. And it may sound kind of strange, because he thought, what? Bears eat snakes? And he had to go, he went and got online and looked it up, and sure enough, bears do eat snakes. And he had no idea. And I love that anecdote, that little story, because the Lord does have a sense of humor as well. Now, I need to share another chapter, or some verses out of a chapter that have been on my mind. And this is Isaiah. This is the first chapter in the beginning of Isaiah. I'm going to jump to... I know many of you are very familiar with Isaiah's words. And I have a lot of respect for Isaiah. It's not, when I imagine, my kids have pretty easy names to remember. Jacob, Michael, they're easy. I can't imagine having to go to my wife and say, guess what I'm supposed to name, or what we're supposed to name our kids. Because the names of Isaiah's kids, or I can't imagine trying to tell my wife, you know what, I'm just going to go out without getting dressed today. Like Isaiah had to do that. I have a lot of respect for him. Now, I'm going to jump forward a few verses. Verse 5 in here. Why should ye be stricken anymore? From the sole of the foot even unto the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises, putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate, your cities are burned with fire, your land strangers devour it in your presence, and it is desolate and overthrown by strangers. Jumping forward a verse, except the Lord of hosts had left us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah. And I can't look, at the things going on today in society and not think that we're Sodom and Gomorrah as a society. Hear the word of the Lord. Okay, give ear to the law of our God. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Lord? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. This verse really struck me. It's fascinating. The way he started it off, he was doing our job for us. He starts it off with a question. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? He's asking the question, why? Maybe because we haven't done it. The children of Israel are offering sacrifices for so many years and probably not asking the question, why am I doing this? Or to what purpose is this? And as a result, a lot of them miss the purpose altogether. And so at this point, I can almost feel the Lord's exasperation. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? When ye appear before me, who hath required this at your hand, to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot. Away with it. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting. Your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth. They're trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And this is the part that really got me. And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. When the Lord said, love your neighbor as yourself, I know a lot of us when we hear that may think, well, how do I love myself? You may not love yourself very much, but do you care for yourself? Do you provide for yourself the things to sustain life? And when your neighbor needs those things, are you willing to care for them like you would yourself? And he says, come. I love this. Come now. Let us reason together. Come sit with me. Come sit with me in your closet. I will come to you. I will fix your heart. I will do what you can't. I know that the Lord is able to do those things because I've experienced them. I know what he can show any of you because he's experienced those same things for you. If you will come to him, and not a lot is required except your willingness to come to him and to have him and to trust him. But when you do that, what he can do for you is he can show you and let you experience those things that that you need to experience that will change you in a way that nothing else could. When he atoned, he finished his preparations unto the children of men. Those were his preparations. He continues to do his work. He has not put his work into the hands of man. He is very close, and he comes and does his work. Let me share in this conference about preparedness. Another different chapter of Scripture comes to mind, and it is this. It is about preparedness, and this is maybe my greatest fear. I'll share with you my greatest fear, and it's in Matthew 7. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name have done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Or as Joseph Smith put it in the JST, you never knew me. Depart from me. And that terrifies me. I realize, going back to earlier when I spoke about my own experience and having my eyes open to my awful situation, but wondering if I had experienced this mighty change, if I could look forward and toward a second comfort or anything like that, I was focused on the wrong things. It's not bad. It's not bad to want a mighty change of heart. No, that's good. It's not bad to want to experience the Lord's presence. Those are good. But my focus was off. Was I just after the experience? Or did I actually want the relationship with him? And I realized I want that relationship. I don't want to be at that door knocking and have the Lord say to me, you didn't know me? I didn't know you? That is the last thing in the world that I want. I hope that with the words that I've shared, and I'm sharing that there's something in here for you that will cause you to want and to desire to know him better than you know anyone else. Now spend the time getting to know him. In 1 Timothy, the commandments that we have, we know that they're to point us to Christ. In 1 Timothy, let's see. I actually think somebody else is going to speak about this. I'm going to save that one for somebody else. If ye love me, keep my commandments. I asked the Lord why. I took that one to him a lot. I took that to him in prayer. Why this commandment to love you? You say to keep your commandments. You say if we love you, keep your commandments. But the question, why do we love the Lord? And I didn't understand initially the scripture that says we love him because he first loved us, and the condescension of God. Understanding that a little bit better, having experienced what I've experienced, it's really difficult for me to talk about without getting emotional when it comes to that, especially when it gets very personal. But his love for each and every one of us was such that he condescended from a place that is hard to fathom, really. And he did that for each one of us. What he offers is incredible. And he offers it to each of us without price, if you will just come to him. I'll finish. Yeah, I think I've said what I was supposed to say. I do know that the Lord is there. Because I couldn't even stand for 2 seconds in his presence. I was on my knees at his feet. But that was just the first time. We can gain confidence in his presence. And I look forward to the next time that I'm in his, because I know exactly what I'll ask him. Ask yourselves the same things. Do you know when he comes to you what you will say? If you'll be able to say anything at all? I invite all of you, as many in scriptures have done before, to just make that a priority. Come to him. And I hope that I've said the things that I need to say from him, and I hope that I have done it in a way pleasing to him in his name. Amen.